What if I said you could turn your Stream Deck into this? Now, there's a number of paid options that allow you to use your Stream Deck to control your DAW, but the thing is, they often only work with one DAW. So it might be Pro Tools, Cubase, Studio One. It might ask you to install a custom set of hotkeys, and those might not be what you're used to, and even worse, they might not be consistent from one DAW to the next. They might actually ask you to install a completely different set of software for the Stream Deck, and that's going to cause an issue with all the other things you use your Stream Deck for. And at the end of the day, they're often built off of the functionality that already exists in your Stream Deck or some free plugins. So today I'm going to show you how to control your DAW using the Stream Deck for free, and it's going to work with any DAW. Now, the first thing you need to do is install loopMIDI. And this is a free application that allows your Stream Deck to act like a hardware MIDI controller that DAWs typically expect. And there's a link below in the description. So all you need to do is go to this page from Tobias Eriksson, download loopMIDI. Once you have that downloaded, I've already got it here. I'm going to go ahead and install it. And it's going to ask you if you want shortcuts and you want to auto start it when logging in. And I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, that's okay, not a problem. And I'm going to install. So that's going to be there. Now I'll go ahead and launch it. And what that's going to do is start this loopMIDI. And now I need to add two ports. So the first one is going to be called Mackie to DAW. I'll just hit the plus sign to add that. Then I'm going to create another one, and it's going to be called DAW to Mackie. And I'm just going to go plus, and that's going to be there. Then I'll just go ahead and click the X. It's going to remain running in the tray. And now we're ready to go on to the next step. Now we'll go ahead and open up the Stream Deck software and we'll install the MIDI control plugin. Okay, and so now we're in the Stream Deck software. As you know, we need to go into the plugins. And what you'll do is go in the search box, you'll type MIDI, and you'll see Music MIDI appears. We're going to go ahead and install this. This, in fact, is going to install the plugin as well as a number of icons that we can use. So we'll just let that go ahead and do its thing. Takes a little longer than some of the other plugins, again, because there's, like I say, the icons and some additional things it needs to put in. So now that that's there, we'll go ahead and close this out. And you'll see at the bottom of the Stream Deck, we now have a lot of MIDI control options. And we're almost ready to start adding up the buttons we need on the Stream Deck. But first thing we need to do is set the Stream Deck up as a controller in your DAW. I'm going to use Persona Studio One, but again, this will work in any DAW that accepts hardware controllers. Okay, and so now I've opened up Studio One, and again, you can do this with any DAW that accepts hardware controllers, but I'm going to show you in Studio One. And you can see I already have a Fader Port 16 installed here as a control device, but I'm going to go ahead and add another. And what we need to do is go ahead and add Mackie Control. And that is the device that I'm using. That's where you recall we set up Mackie to DAW and DAW to Mackie. And as it turns out, we're going to use the Mackie functions in the Stream Deck plugin for MIDI. And so receive from, we need to select. And so we're getting from Mackie to DAW. That's the one we set up that's going to send information from the Stream Deck into the DAW. And then to send to, we're going to use DAW to Mackie. And that's going to send information back to the Stream Deck. Once that's done, we can click OK. And you see that I now have that controller added up. Okay, and so now I've gone ahead and opened up just a very small song here in Studio One. And we'll go ahead and add our first button here. And so in the MIDI section, I'm going to choose Mackie Control and drag that onto one of the buttons on the Stream Deck. And you'll see the first time it's going to ask you if you need some more information. It's going to let you go to the website. Just going to go ahead and close that out. And the other thing it says here is to go ahead and confirm which DAW connect that's being done. And so what I need to do here is go in and do a couple things. I can leave the layout as generic, or I can in fact change it for a number of really popular DAWs. So since I'm using Studio One, I'm actually going to change it to Studio One. And so this is all going to be pre-configured as far as MIDI is concerned. Next thing I can do is go into the MIDI out port, and I'm going to choose the Mackie to DAW. That's the one that's I set up. And then I'm going to choose DAW to Mackie for my MIDI in port. And once that's done, I'm going to click the Done button here. And it's going to say, okay, you've gone ahead and you have that set. Now it's ready to set up buttons. And you'll see that I have a variety of options. Under section, I have different types of buttons. I can have specific channels. I can have time display, transport. There's so many things that can be done here. Let's start out by going ahead and adding in a basic function here. I'll add in a basic transport function. And you'll see I have the options of play, record, rewind, etc. I'm going to build a transport control. So we're going to choose play, and that's going to be there. And so now that I have set up, I'm going to go ahead and change the icon just to something that makes sense to me. And again, you can use whatever icons you like for this. I'm going to go ahead and choose this play button here. This actually looks right to me. So I have that, and I can go ahead and close that off. And then I'm going to add up another Mackie control button here. And this time it's going to be a transport, and I'm going to choose stop. And again, I'll select an icon that is going to make sense to me for stop. Now, you have many icons to choose from, of course. It's built in here into the Stream Deck. There may be something that's exactly what you want or not. I'll go ahead and choose this one for the sake of this demonstration. And we'll just go ahead and go OK. And let's try these out. And stop. And so those are working. And then it's just going to be a matter of building out the various buttons for transport control. And so now I've switched over to a layout that I have mostly built just so that I can show you a few other things. So let's go ahead and add up mute and solo control for the selected channel. So what I'm going to do is, again, drag Mackie control up into one of the buttons that's available, and I want to turn this one into a mute for the selected channel. So what I'm going to do is go to the selected channel, and I'm going to choose the mute function. And that's going to go ahead and now do mute, and it says don't show the track name. We can actually have it show the track name if we want as well. There's options here, but I'll again go ahead and I need to choose an icon for this, or I can simply just put a letter in here as well. Let's see if I go into icons, if there's anything that looks that's kind of interesting for mute. And I don't see anything particular here that I want to use. So I'm actually going to choose just a kind of a generic button. So I have a little bit of a backdrop here. And then all I'm going to do is in the title, I'm going to put a large M in. And we'll go ahead and take that. We'll make it larger. And I'll also go ahead and I'll change the color of mute here. I'll make it red. And that way it'll stand out. And so if you don't have a specific icon you want to use, M is pretty standard for mute. Now I'll go ahead and I'll create one also for solo the track. That's another function that I use all the time. And so here again, we need to go to the selected channel. We'll change this to the solo function. And once again, I'm just going to go ahead and put an S in here for consistency. I'll just, again, choose a generic button as a backdrop. And I'm going to put a large capital S in here. And I'm going to increase the font size again, just like I did with the other. And we'll change the color. I typically am used to seeing more of an orangey color for solo, so I'll do that. And so now you see I have a mute button. Now, in Studio One behind, you can see that this track here, track number 3, is selected. I'm going to go ahead and press S on the Stream Deck, and you'll see that it is soloed. Now I press it again, and it turned it off. Now I'll press M, and that's going to mute that channel. And so we have the solo and mute function. And I've added a lot of other things here. I have buttons that go ahead and allow me to open and close the mixer, so I can actually open and close that mixer if I want. There's other functions here, the browser on the side. Browser in Studio One is this window where I get to see all the various plugins and things and effects and instruments that I have. So I've added a lot of functionality that I use. You can certainly add any that you want. There are many options here. But the last thing I'm going to show you how to do is set up the faders, because that's the part that most people are really interested in here. So let's go ahead and set up a couple of faders. And again, you could set up an entire panel of faders if that's what you like. I've kind of got a variety of control here that's sort of emulating what you'd get almost if you had a single control fader, kind of like you get with the IO station, or you get with a fader port 1. And so let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to change this to, again, this is going to be a fader for the selected channel, and it's going to be a fader. And when we go into here, you see we have fader direction up and down. So this is going to be up. I'll leave it there, and I can have it display the value if I want, but I'm going to keep this fairly simple. And then I'm going to drag another Mackie control below it and also select the select channel fader. And in this case, it's going to be a down fader. All right. And so once I have those selected, I've got, I have my setup so that I can actually go ahead and make this happen. Now, one thing I didn't do, and I need to make sure I have this here, is that I have to change the button type. This is going to be the lower button, and I'm going to go to the one at the top here, and I'll change that to the upper button. And that way I have both directions. And so now what I'm going to do is I'll just slide this off the screen a little bit so it doesn't fully disappear, and I'm going to press those buttons. So as I press the up button, you'll see that the fader in channel 3 in Studio One is moving. And I'm pressing the down button, and you see the fader is now dropping down. And it actually shows in here, you'll see the animation that shows where the fader is actually at. And that's really useful. You see it transitions up to the button above or the button below. So really kind of a useful animation, allows you to move that fader. I can actually hold the button and the fader will move. And that's one of the things that's interesting here. You don't have to keep pushing the button. You just hold it and it'll go up or down. And if you want to alter the speed of that, it's just a matter of choosing the fader speed function here. It says slower or faster, starts out in the middle. So choose whatever is your favorite preference. And so now that I have that set up, whatever track is selected is the one that'll be controlled. So I'll use my track select buttons and I'll move back here. Let's go back to track 1, which is the drums. And now I can go ahead and adjust the fader, again, using the buttons, and it'll move up and down. And so again, really useful to have that fader control in addition to all my transport. You know, in the transport here, I've set up stop, play, fast forward, rewind, record. I've got a loop back to the beginning. I can start play from where I have loops selected. I can add the metronome in and out, return to the beginning. I've even added an open and close button here for the Studio One, and I'll show you just how I have that set up as well. But also another nice fader that you typically want to have might be a master fader control. You know, that's always going to be there. You could have mix controls, bus controls, anything you like here. And so again, what I would typically do is I would set this up for the master control. Again, really simple. We're going to go to master channel this time. It's a fader. This is going to be up. We'll make sure this is the upper button. Then I'm going to go ahead and add one in below. And I will choose again the master channel here, fader. This one here is going to be down, and it's going to be the lower button. And so we have that all set up. And now really the same thing applies. Watch, keep your eye on the master over here. And as I push those buttons, you'll see that the fader is going to move up and down with the animations. And if there's anything that isn't covered under all of the options on Mackie Control, and I'll just pull us up to another button here just to show you, you know, when we look at all the controls, if you go into the DAW functions, you have the vast majority of the controls that are available on the DAW. We can select fader banks, various types of automation, latch control, etc. Got changes for global view. We can have instruments, outputs, mixers, etc. Lots of things here. But if in fact there was something that wasn't there, and again, you have specifics for channel strips, you have the fader capability, transport and time display. But if there is something that just wasn't there, I'll delete that. The way you can go ahead and get it happening is just create a multi-action. And the reason you need to do it as a multi-action, again, is anytime you're going to use a hotkey, you want to make sure that in case you've clicked on another window and you're not in Studio One, that it's going to select Studio One first. And so what I do there is just drag multi-action over to the button. We'll set that up. The very first thing is going to be open, and we're going to open Studio One. And the idea being, again, that we'll make sure that it is the highlighted window. It's not going to open a second window. It's just going to make sure it's selected. And the second thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and throw in a hotkey. And then it's just a matter of what it is that you like to do. And the nice thing, in Studio One, I can hover over things. So for example, if I was creating the button to show or hide this browser, if I hover over browser, it shows me the hotkey. In this case, it's F5. So we'll just go ahead in there and I'll click to assign and I'll push F5. And there it is. So now I have this button set up, and if I press it, you'll see what's going to happen is the browser window will open and close as I press it. And so really useful way, anything that's not included in the Mackie control, you can go ahead and create a hotkey, but you need to do it as a multi-action. And finally, I'll show you how I created the power button for Studio One to start and stop. The start's pretty easy. Once we have that button selected, all you would need to do is just go into your Stream Deck controls, and it's just a matter of using the open function. And so you would just drag open up onto there. Now, I've set this up as multi-action, and I'll show you why. I have this here as a multi-action switch. And so to get that to work properly, we're going to create a multi-action switch. And so let me just go ahead and I'll delete this button and I'll show you how it works. Let's go ahead here and delete. Okay, and let's start from scratch. So I'm going to put multi-action switch. And by switch, it's going to allow me to use one button each way. So the first one is going to be to turn this on. And so to turn it on, I'm just going to go ahead and drag open up here, and I'm going to choose the app. And it's pretty straightforward. I can just scroll down in my case and choose Studio One version 5. And now I have the on selected. So I can go out to multi-action. I'll go back to this icon, and now I'll choose what the toggle for off is going to be. And once I've done that, again, I can click on the button, and now I need to do a couple of things. Just in case I've switched off of the Studio One window, so I'm using other windows, I want to make sure that Studio One is selected when I close the app. And so what I'm going to do is drag the open function into here, and again, I'm going to choose Studio One. Now, this isn't going to open it a second time, but what it will do is reselect or make sure that the Studio One window is selected when I go to shut this off. And then the next thing I need to do to close this app, and this is the way I'm going to do it with Studio One, is I'm just going to use a hotkey. Because if we look in Studio One, it turns out that quit has a hotkey of Control Q. And so all I'm going to do then here in the Stream Deck is I'm going to use the hotkey function. I'll put that in here, and the hotkey, I'll click here and I'm going to go Control Q. So now I have that as a hotkey. And finally, I want to probably set an icon up here, something that's going to look right. And it'd be nice to have something that, again, changes for open and close. So in this case, what I'm actually going to do is set it from File, and I'm going to use some icons from my Nerd or Die Clarity animated icons actually here to make it a little more interesting. I'll go down here and I'll choose an animated icon, and I think I have one here that's just for power actually. That's a power button. That could be pretty useful. I think it's under App Power button, Team Viewer. Philips Hue, there we go, power on. So we go okay, and then I'm going to go over here and I'll do the same thing for the power off. So we'll go up here through app and I'll find power off. Okay, and so now I've created this power button, and I'll just throw this off to the side and I'll show you what happens. I'm in Studio One. When I press that power button, it's going to take me back to Studio One. And what's happening is it asked me if I want to save changes. And the answer, is going to be yes or no. And so I go ahead and do that. I'm going to cancel out of this right now. And the same thing would apply. When Studio isn't running, you press the button, all it's going to do is open the Studio One app. So kind of convenient to have, not absolutely necessary if you need the button space. I'm using a Stream Deck XL here, and as you can see, by the time you start adding up a lot of controls, it's easy to fill this up right away. So you have to decide what's going to be most important for you in terms of functions. Of course, you can use more than one Stream Deck here as well, but the point of this video is kind of, if you already have a Stream Deck and you want to use it as a DAW controller, this is a free solution. And that's it. Now we have the Stream Deck set up as a DAW control surface. It's nice to have a dedicated surface like this Faderport 16, but at the end of the day, it depends on cost and it depends on whether you have the desk space. And the fact is, if you're watching this video, you probably already have a Stream Deck. And so if you're using a DAW, this is the free solution. You can get a lot done with this. And if you're interested in more ways to level up your content for recording, streaming, and studio, if you're interested in gear, check out one of the videos on the screen. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.